like to convene the February meeting of the Board of Police Commissioner. Please rise. We start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The chief is out of town, and so it only takes two captains to cover one chief. So we will be working with Captain Yorke and Captain Harkins tonight. Is there a motion to accept our January minutes?
Motion to accept January as written. Any comments, exceptions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, thank you. Public comments. We do have some members of the public here. We always welcome them. If you could, certainly, no immediate time limit for your comments, but if you could try to be relatively brief given the full agenda. If you could just state your name and residence, please.
Sure.
If you would like to.
Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to?
Go ahead, Bruce.
Bruce Wilson, 45 Dairy Hill Road.
You've been to a few meetings.
I've been to one or two. So tonight, if you'll indulge me, I'd like to first speak as a resident and then second as a selectman. A few weeks ago, some signs were installed in our neighborhood, Dairy Hill and Creamery. They were children at play signs. They were installed without any warning to the neighbors. And I'm here to ask, my ask tonight is that they be removed for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, they don't adhere to the Town of Madison policy for placing signs. That policy wasn't utilized at all. Second, as I've gone down the rabbit hole of researching these types of signs, they're not part of the traffic code, and they're deliberately not part of the traffic code because they're not recommended. The state of Connecticut recommends against using these types of signs in residential neighborhoods, and only really says they might be used where children will be playing in an unexpected place. They don't define what that is, but they adopt the philosophy, as do a couple other states, that the children at play signs are confusing because they look like warning signs, but they're not really warning signs. And motorists should expect pedestrians, cyclists, and children to potentially in the roadway in any neighborhood, residential neighborhood, at any time. So having them up in some places and not having them up in other places could be misleading. And then they cite statistics, and I am referencing for your information, the Connecticut Traffic Institute, I believe it is, which is part of UConn. And they've got a couple pages of why these should not be used. They cite statistics that I couldn't track down that say they're not effective. They're certainly not in keeping with the look and feel of Madison. These signs are, well, I can't reach the bottom of the sign when I'm standing under it. When I put my hand up, I can't reach the bottom of the sign, and they're in neighbors' front yards. We are maybe a half a mile of road, and we have 12 signs. So they're not in keeping with Madison's visual aesthetic. They're not effective, and they were put in really sort of without warning and without input from the residents. So that's why I'd like them removed. Just switching hats as a selectman. I think this is a terrific opportunity to revisit, and I know that it's going to come up tonight in the agenda. There is a procedure on the books. Ed, you were on the police commission when that procedure was created. Jack was also the chief. And I don't see Al here, but Al was a selectman at the time. So there is a process that defined how traffic calming, which is what the intention, I believe, of this was, should be handled in the town of Madison. And it looks like a really good document that maybe it needs to be updated, but involves the police commission as the LTA, and also involves the Board of Selectmen, which I think was an acknowledgement that these are signs in the community, and so the Board of Selectmen, while maybe not having the final say, I think that sovereign responsibility rests with you folks. It creates a sort of a more public process for people to be aware of the changes as they're happening. So I extended to Chief Drum my commitment to be a part of that conversation, to, at least from the Board of Selectmen side. I've also extended that to Sam DeBurra, to say that I think this is an opportunity to get better. I know that signage, mirrors, these things can be somewhat challenging and problematic as neighbors come in and ask. This provides a public process that we might not be able to guarantee an outcome, but we can guarantee that it will be considered consistently and in line with best practice for traffic calming in Connecticut, in Madison.
Well, I understand, there's been some discussions about this already, and there is the start of a clear process to determine sign placement and process. So, I think the idea of having some clarity about how the request for a sign was generated, who needs to be notified, recognizing that notification process always might be a little uncertain, but clearly, we've, and this is, in no way am I saying, is this the case in this instance, but we have dealt with instances where we need to get this no parking sign up, particularly during the summer, but I don't want the no parking sign in front of my house because my brother-in-law comes in from New York. And so, but I think the point is to involve town engineering in coordination with the police department so that there is, to the extent we can, there is an openness, a transparency. No one is surprised if there's some disagreement about the need for the signage. It could come here where it can be kind of discussed in an open forum with, as you said, ultimately, the local traffic authority, the police department saying, what is in the best interest of the safety and the clarity of what is intended for this particular area. The idea that you raised in terms of the number of signs and the location of them and the height of them, I think are legitimate areas that should be spelled out, or at least say, here is what, there are 3 levels of signs: parking, pedestrian identification, biking safety, whatever it might be. We have them categorized so that no one is going to suddenly come up with, here's what I want the sign to say. And also, I certainly can't guarantee this, but to the extent that we can, try to say, how do we find the right balance between it being unobtrusive, but also readable. Town cartilage, because we get requests in a variety of areas. Given Mother Nature, we have certain signs that on a periodic basis, we recognize we've got to encourage town engineering or Beach and Rec to somebody said, you gotta get a hedge clipper out there because everyone can see the sign pole, but no one knows what the heck the sign says.
Yeah, and I appreciate that
Yeah.
history, and I think that's where the Board of Selectmen can also apply some pressure. Just one last little bit that I forgot. It so happens that the signs, one of the signs, I got two on my property. One of the signs actually broke my underground dog fence. And I looked it up. The contractor did not follow the ordinance, so they have to get a permit to work in the town right away before they do anything. And one of the considerations is that they accommodate underground irrigation, of course the utilities, right? We don't want them, punching into a power line underground. But utilities and dog fences are spelled out in the ordinance. So had we been notified, we might have had a chance to mark some of these things. I think the other sign hit my sprinkler, but I'm not going to know until the spring. So the other reason to ask for the removal is they were never installed according to the town ordinance.
Well, I understand, Bruce, a form is in the process of being developed, and, as I said, the chief is out of town this entire week. But what we'll commit is this will certainly be on an agenda that I hope can have a more complete discussion, finalize it. I understand there is a process trying to coordinate it with the engineering so that there's also a sense of, if the request comes in, we think the resident is entitled to an answer, including the answer may be, sorry, we don't think the sign makes sense in that situation. We have found, and this is not surprising, I'm sure, not surprising to you, certainly the most we found, based on the feedback from, the professional officers here, the most effective signs are the interactive ones. They're going 47 miles an hour. Yeah. Some of the other signs, I mean, they're informational, but there's also instances where somebody says, didn't there used to be a sign there? And stop signs are, I think we've got a very, we seem to be able to get those critical signs replaced very, very quickly. Some of the other signs, whether they're, speed limit or some other parking signs, we've had some help sometimes from neighbors in terms of removing those signs on a periodic basis.
Thank you for the back and forth. I appreciate this is the public comment and not hearing,
Okay.
but thank you very much for that and with sensitivity to your
Yeah.
agenda.
Yeah. Well, it is something that the chief has conveyed. This is something we need to address and clarify. Anyway, thank you.
And part of that, Bruce, is that over the years that the commission has been here, there have been a number of traffic issues raised, and I have taken some of the responsibility specifically for traffic, and I have found that a number of times that even the state of Connecticut is unaware of some of the restrictions on signs, either placement and or size. So when we make a request to them, we have to go through a process, and we've encountered situations lately where some of the people who started the process have retired, and whether they decided to take the paperwork with them or not. But it is a convoluted process, and between Ed and I and the commission working with the office, we will get an answer, and we will do the best we can to make it the right answer for everybody. That's that middle ground we're looking for.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Just one comment. Valerie Terrence, Hesses, Calibo, Yaco, 17 Berry Hill Road. And I did kind of raise some of the issues to the first selectman, so thank you for allowing me. There is also a statement, and I've had several people comment who are lawyers about the liability that we might be causing to the local agency by not following a process or by placing inappropriate signs. And so many people have commented about our signs, and I can tell you it was an out-of-town lawyer who kind of commented, did they put the signs everywhere? And I said, not to my knowledge. And they said, wow, if something happens in a different neighborhood, I wonder what a lawyer would say as far as why are these kids more important, because nothing happened in our neighborhood. It's not like, God forbid, something happened and you're putting up signs, but it's like, and again, it's a more affluent neighborhood to a different neighborhood in Madison. And so I just wanted to make sure people understood those comments, and it is part of the website that it's kind of like one of the, if it doesn't comply with the state of Connecticut rulings, what does it do from a liability perspective? So I just want to make sure people are aware of everything so that when the decisions are made, they're, again, if we put signs everywhere, different story versus putting them appropriately.
Good, thank you.
Elizabeth Wilson, 45 Dairy Hill Road. I don't really have too much to add other than, you know, the dog fence was broken, and I'm really glad that the dog didn't run out and get injured or hurt. And Bruce sent me something from 2010, and you said it's kind of convoluted, but there's a flow chart. Do you guys all have the flow chart?
I just looked it up while we were
The
sitting here.
flow chart is beautiful. I mean, it's step by step. It's, you know, a decision tree on signs. So I just was drawing your attention to that because that's really a great flow chart. That's my comment.
Now, the origin of that chart, was that from the state, from here within the department?
It was
It's
from
it's
Madison.
the town of Madison. It originated with the police commission, working with Public Works, and was approved by the police commission and the board of selectmen in 2010.
Yeah,
Could you send that to the commission, please?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And it's also referenced
Do you
in
wanna
the
see it
town
on-
website with
I believe
the
you, I just,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
the
it's not a question of believability, but a hard copy sometimes.
Yeah, it talked, you know, the first box is study initiation, and then it goes down from there. After you do the study, then you perform a screening, and then, you know,
Okay.
it's a great flow chart.
Good, thank you.
Robert Wallach, 31 Dairy Hill Road. I've been living on Dairy Hill since 2003, so 2002, and I've seen many generations of kids grow up over there. It's a dead-end street. There's only one way to get in, and everybody in the neighborhood knows each other. I think for people coming in, it would be sufficient to have one sign at the very entrance going down, alerting them to have children. I think it's extremely redundant for the signs to be positioned as you're coming out. Also, we had no warning about this sign coming in. Like Bruce said, I think if one sign was placed right in my sprinkler head. My wife, she takes care of the lawn or the whole yard by herself. That's her baby, and to have a sign like that put right in front of our front door, it was very distressing to her. It would impede the cutting of the grass and everything. Also, we do have a challenged kid in our family, and my pregnant daughter was very distraught to have a sign planted in front of our front door saying "slow children." That's just very hurtful.
Yeah. Clearly, that wasn't the
I understand.
I know you.
Just we have
Sure,
a
I
different
understand.
point of view on it.
Some things are just sensitive
Yes.
wording. Anyway,
Thank you.
okay, well, as I said, we have a process that is underway. It should not be a lengthy one, and hopefully, you know, we can come up with some, you know, just either reaffirming this is the flow chart. And I was aware that there was a process. I wasn't sure exactly what it was, but it's certainly, we're in the process of revisiting it, and we will make whatever change, if needed, to that process. So there's a clarity. Board of Selectmen absolutely, should be aware of this is the process. This does not need to go, become a. Certainly, I hope it doesn't become a major community issue. This is something that, there's a clear process. It can be handled in a timely way. There's an accountability for it. There's someone who needs an answer, knows where to go to get the answer. So anyway, thank you for your comments. Good. Okay. Chief's report. We've kind of tag teamed the agenda in terms of what this is normally handled. So, Jeremy, budget, finance?
Budget, the commissioners have the budget information in front of you. Do you guys have any questions in regards to any of the budget information?
Can we look at the budget summary?
Yep,
'Cause I've,
yep.
So if we look at this and it's the budget summary for January,
Yes.
it's reaffirming the impact of the vacancy we've had since we're 123,000 over on overtime, slightly under in terms of the salaries. So overall, we're through January, we're about 5% over where we are. I understand the logic to me. It kind of holds together for the being under in salaries and wages because of the vacancy, then over and overtime. Is the training overage, is that just a matter of timing, or does it reflect some of the training we've done to date?
Yeah, so for, just to go over, some of the overtime, the special duty, we get reimbursed at the end of the year by utility companies. So right now, it's about 36,000 that will be coming back towards the end of the year from Eversource, all the other, the companies.
Is that calendar or fiscal?
Fiscal year, I believe, right? Fiscal year. Yep. So that'll be towards the end of the year. We'll get all those payments back. So that will reduce that tremendously. Education training, just like everything, compared to your eggs, everything is more expensive now. The trainings that the officers and everything go to. So, there's just been an increase in costs in regards to that. And then, we got the 4 officers that are in the academy now with training, so they have a lot of, travel pay. The Milford Academy, they have training now that takes place on Saturdays to make up for the hours to get them graduated quicker. So we have to pay overtime for that. So that's that line item there.
So we pay overtime for an officer in the academy who's getting trained on a Saturday?
Yes, because it's over the 40 hours.
Well,
Yeah.
That's weird.
I picked up 40 hours right away. So
So a rookie's getting OT, a non-rookie, non-police officer's getting OT.
So is it normal schedule, have an academic calendar that's kind of 6 days a week or periodically 6 days a week?
So we look at it as a 40-hour work week, and within a 2-week pay period, they're getting paid over the 80 hours. So by labor law, they're entitled to. Yeah. So,
believe me.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand. So whatever the academy schedules them, if we say, look at you didn't finish it last week, so we want you to finish it this week.
Yeah.
You kicked over 40 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Nice.
Good.
'Cause they have a strict timeline. There's a curriculum that the post sets where they have to hit, it's roughly 1,500 hours. And they have it all lined up like a clock with instructors and everything, so they have to, if an instructor's available on that Saturday, they have to hold that training, because otherwise you have to complete all the training in order to graduate. So you can't be like, oh, well, they're shy maybe 14 hours in domestic violence law. It's just something you have to do, unfortunately, you know?
Okay,
Yep.
good. So, speaking of training,
Yep, it's the training, yeah. Let me pull up my report.
Before we get to training, how's the
Yeah.
budget process looking?
So,
Still in process, correct?
so it's still in process. We had the presentation in front of both boards, the finance and the selectmen. So now I think it's going through the process on that end, and yeah, we're just waiting to hear now. Yep,
Waiting to hear the
waiting to
results.
hear the
Okay.
results of that. Yep.
Okay.
If I could pull up my training, here we go. Thank God. Okay. So for the month of January, the Madison Police Department participated in 214 hours of training. And, you know, the training included citizens with special needs, our EMR, that's our first responder certifications with the Department of Public Health. We had our TASER recertification, and then we had our Collect recertification and our SWAT team. The first one, the citizens with special needs, that's done through our post online training. And that is a mandatory requirement for officers recertification. That's a class that's done. And also we had, Captain Harkins went to an officer-involved shootings training that was held by the Inspector General's office. And he's relayed all the information to our patrol supervisor and everything if we ever are involved in a situation like that, so.
offhand, and this is not a nitpicky kind of question.
Yep.
In the state of Connecticut, what would you estimate the number of officer-involved shootings are?
Per year, per calendar year?
Per year.
Yeah.
So I think they had up to, for shootings, it was much less, but I think a lot of the calls for the Inspector General's office was to corrections, deaths in custody. So they're very busy. I think it was up to like 75 last year, something along those lines. It was high. But I don't have a number on
No, but
it.
could you at some point, you know, next month, just share, I mean, one of the things that I think we've enjoyed in Madison is it really, I think, thanks to certainly the awareness and the professionalism of the police department and the way we coordinate with schools, but the school safety. But also, I think it's sometimes easy to forget, there are officer-involved shootings in Connecticut. And they're all not in the inner city. And it just, you know, behooves us to, when we talk about the need for officers and the training we put in and why we have qualification on ranges, it just, you know, it's not all, you know, traffic stops,
Yeah.
you know, and so just, you know, helpful that we stay alert to, and it's not, certainly don't intend it, you know, to be alarmist, but there's a reason why you bring certain tools to work every day that other people don't bring to work every day.
And not to cut you off, but just, you know, going back on the budget with the training, we bring that live fire shoot trailer where it's at simulation. We used to do that every other year. The cost has gone up, I would say, by $1,000 or $2,000, but it's such good training to give, you know, that stress of a live fire situation, where that just, it's so valuable for the officers just to experience that annually. And we'll continue to pay that because it's such good training for them to just there's nothing that could simulate a real life event, but if we can get it as close as possible as a training aspect, we're gonna do that, so.
A little bit more on Ed's comment, without making it too much of a job to research, would it be possible to get the shooting numbers he's asking for and then go back, say perhaps 3 years? Because just listening to the news, reading the papers, there seems to be a lot more incidents where police officers are threatened with gunfire now than there ever were before. And it would be a very good idea for the residents of the town to know what those statistics are, because we've never had that happen, but the potential is everywhere. And they should know what you guys potentially could be up against.
Right, so I supervise 2 officer-involved shootings in New Haven, and it's a very chaotic scene, as you can imagine. So there's a lot of stress on the officers. There's obviously a victim, and there are, there's a lot of media. There's a lot of things to take into consideration when you have a scene like that. So it was very good. The Inspector General's office, Jimmy Videro, is a former chief in Newtown, and he really gave a really good class. And I took that information and I was able to bring it to our supervisors. The first line supervisor, our sergeants, are the most important person on that, at least initially. So I kind of was able to sit down with each shift and talk to them about, if this happens, this is what I need you to do. And then when we get there, we'll take it from there. But it really was successful, it was good.
Good.
Yeah.
Is there any training that Maya is gonna be a part of, like any of the online stuff that she sees more of on the police side?
Yeah, so as she gets more involved in depth, so right now she's still a graduate student, so she's still completing her, her studies in her master's program, but she is working with Madison Youth and Family. And I know we're gonna try, like in the summertime upon graduation, get her more like in de-escalation training, and just have the officers more aware of what social services are out there. We're trained to how do we handle the situation, how to de-escalate the situation, but we're not trained on what follow-up service that may be beneficial. So she's definitely gonna be participating in roll call trainings, just all right, what follow-up services would you recommend? And she's already been making great connections with the officers, like at our roll calls, and I think she's already had close to 25 to 30 contacts with residents out in the community. And she's been live now for about 3 weeks or so, so it's really been beneficial.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Traffic? Americans?
Okay. In January, the Madison Police Department responded to a total of 25 motor vehicle accidents. Of these, 1 was a fatal accident and 3 resulted in injuries. 13 accidents involved property damage only, while 6 occurred on private property. Additionally, 2 of these incidents involved a party evading responsibility. The primary causes of these accidents were failure to maintain proper lane and following too closely.
I don't want to make the chief say I'm never gonna miss a meeting again, but is there a way when we talk about, some of this traffic information is very helpful. Is there any other way, and this has been raised a couple of times among the commissioners, is there any way we can organize statistics in a category, I'm really just making this up, impactful crimes, impactful activities? In other words, the break-in in a car in your driving is an impactful event. The break-in in a home. We've all heard that people say, I feel violated, I don't feel safe anymore, this has never happened, oh my. So, a traffic stop for somebody speeding is important in maintaining public safety. On the other hand, a purse snatching, something that has an emotional, I just am thinking about it at 2 o'clock in the morning kind of crime. Maybe some cyber crimes fall into that because you know, I've lost, you know, $12,000. But is there a way, when we talk about safety in this community and what we're asking law enforcement to focus on, is there a way that we might think about that? Because, you know, you see someone speeding and they get pulled over, you think, okay, I'm gonna drive slow. On the other hand, you know, someone breaks into your car, months later, you're still going through the glove compartment, making sure you don't leave anything of value in the car. And I'm not asking you to kind of come up with it tonight, but give it some thought, because it is also a way, when we talk about the resources needed, that we might be able to refer to that to educate the public to a certain extent. A little bit of my concern is we have people who thankfully go through the entire week, the entire month, the entire year, and everything is just safe to them. You know, they just do not, they're untouched by any of the activities that they sometimes read about in the paper. Other than going on 95 with the racetrack, but they're just untouched by it. And one of the things we have to do is to say, wait a minute, you know, we're not trying to panic anyone, but things happen here in Madison. That's why we do all the training. So if you could, maybe there's another category. Maybe it's some, you know, if you said, for example, you know, your neighborhood is very quiet. On the other hand, there are 7 domestic violence complaints every month in Madison that we have to respond to. Maybe not in your neighborhood, but they're happening here. And the fact that someone called the police and they're involved in domestic violence, you know, and maybe 2 houses down, but you may not be aware of it, but we're involved in it. So anyway, if you could give it some thought, maybe there's some other ways or some other community statistics that we can, you know, harvest. And you know the jargon more than I do, violent crime or whatever it might be, but maybe that's too more serious than what I'm, you know, thinking about. Anyway, if you could give it some thought.
Just to piggyback on that, I mean, that could be an interesting thing to look at, and at the last meeting, Holly was talking, you all were talking about how you categorize for the quarterly statistics, and so maybe if it's easy to just look at groups, you know, that you're already categorizing and see, which also makes me think, whatever happened to the famous police blotter, where crimes or police contact were listed in the newspaper? Like, that was a thing, that used to be a thing.
So what our records department prints that out and it's in front of the records glass. So that would the
So instead of printing the
newspapers.
paper, now it's,
Yeah, so
you
the
have to come down to
newspaper,
decision?
our format has never changed. It's just a matter now if the newspapers come out and get that information.
Gotcha.
So we put every week, our records clerk is Fairly puts that out, and it's underneath the glass where it has all of the calls for service and everything. So our process hasn't changed in that regard. It's more to the newspapers and come out for it.
Great.
Could we add that to the material that we share with the commissioners?
The
Yeah.
blotter information?
Yeah, I mean, to Ann's point, it would
Public
be
information, so.
interesting to say, hey, if it's, I don't know, unless, I mean, I don't know, does it identify individuals or not? I mean, I'm not sure we
I
need.
think it's
to
just
It
the
used to
address.
say-
It's just, yeah, it used to. I think it just has the address and what the type of incident
Mhm.
was.
Mhm.
Or give it,
Or sometimes it's like on the 600 block.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, well, give it some thought, because it is, you know, what you're hearing, I think, is an interest in getting more data by the commission, more kind of what's going on, help us absorb a little bit what you're dealing with, what the patrol officers deal with. And it's, you know, obviously, I hope you accept this, and so we can better support any resource request needs, you know, and so give it some thought in terms of, is there a way that we can consolidate that information or have it fit into, you know, what I asked you to consider, you know, something that says, hey, it involves citizens in Madison to the extent the police were involved. I mean, I don't need to know the names of the domestic violence incidents, but, you know, here are, you know, to answer, here's the blotter.
Along those same lines, if we had that information and in a regular meeting, we might be able to mention that there were 3 of these or 4 of these, so that where the public is watching it has an idea of the variety of skill sets that you guys have to deal with a variety of instances. You know, a lot of people don't truly understand all the education, all the skills you guys have. They see a uniform, they see a guy of reasonable size, more than reasonable with Captain Harkins. They see a gun, maybe a baton. Let's clear up any misconceptions anybody has about what it is you see every day, and the public can be more aware.
Okay.
Some version of that.
So it's funny you should bring that up. So after last meetings with the quarterly, if you look at this, I'm working on a new form for the quarterly, and then when I was done, I was gonna present it to you. Obviously, this is a quarterly meeting, but since you're talking about monthly stats, if you wanna just take a look quickly, this is January 2025, I'm gonna add to this.
Okay.
So when the quarterly comes, I'll have the 3 months, okay? But anyways, this is a cover sheet, which is a quick reference for you to look to see what's going on in town for the month. Then what you'll see is the breakdown of what everything is, and you'll see it's much easier on the eyes. I think that there were some issues with the old one, so this is I think this is a better version of it. So feel free to take a look. It captures a lot of the things that you're talking about, a little bit more detail. And if you have any questions, please feel free. You take a look at that.
So for something like that, is that something that we could possibly see monthly, and then at the quarterly, that's when we compare it to the previous year and such? I think that's kind of what Ed, and I think what everybody's trying to get at is that it would be nice to see that monthly.
Sure.
And then at the quarterly, we could see how it could compare previously.
Yep.
But seeing it monthly, I
Sure.
think would be helpful.
Good. Yeah, look, and some of this, I think, is, let's see if we can improve it, let's see how it works. If it doesn't work, we'll change a little bit more. But I think the idea of sitting there saying, particularly with the commissioners, we're trying to understand it more. Not to intrude, but we're trying to understand it. The information that you presented to the board of the joint Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen meeting that related the domestic violence calls and translated that into the number of minutes involved by officer, I think was very revealing to them. You know, they just said, and someone sitting there saying, so you had 2 domestic violence calls a night. That's 2. Well, and you tack on, you know that, whatever, 200 or 400 minutes, all of a sudden it's, wow. So anyway, so I'm a big fan of, you know, let's tinker with it, see if we can improve it, and then, by the way, it's cast in Xerox, so we can change it if we need to.
What's a 911 hang-up that someone stops the call, doesn't identify themselves?
It's like if you
say the call?
butt dial 911 by accident.
Playing.
Yeah,
Kids playing on the phone.
Okay.
Just one other point there, sir. You'll see at the very end there the miscellaneous thing. So those are the calls that we're capturing on here, okay, are the things that what Commissioner Dolling's saying, the things that have the most impact on the town of Madison. Now, there are several other types of calls for service that we get that we're not tracking like that. They're not as impactful, and it's very laborious to get every single one. So here's a list of just some examples of calls that we get that may not be tracked in that group right there. So in case you're wondering what miscellaneous is, because the total number is the total calls for service for the town for that month. But miscellaneous is not captured in the other brackets. So these are the type of calls that, so if you're wondering, what's miscellaneous? There's 186 calls of miscellaneous. These are some of the ideas for miscellaneous. And so you'll understand what I mean. And if you have any questions, let me know. You can take a quick look.
Okay,
Great.
good, thank you.
Oh, that's okay.
Recruit,
I trust you.
Recruitment, okay.
our favorite stuff?
Recruitment, so South Central Criminal Justice held a written examination on Wednesday, February 5th, and it was held online, not in person, so we couldn't go out with our table and with our recruitment team. However, the oral boards will be held in person. They were held today and tomorrow, okay? So we should be receiving a list by next week. We're also utilizing social media for our police officer job postings as well as police app. So that's where we're at right now for recruitment. We're waiting for that
Has
list.
there been any more interest, or has anybody surfaced as a possible lateral?
No, sir.
Okay, community calendar.
So the community calendar, so in January we had the Coffee with the Cop event that was held at the Madison Coffee House. And then going forward, we have several other events coming up. We have the Super Bowl. I always have to stop before I say it. Super Bowl. Yeah, that's taking place on February 22nd. And then we have, our classic Memorial Day, 4th of July, and the summer activities that are taking place.
How did the coffee with the cop go?
Great.
Yeah.
Good turnout. There was actually a family that showed up that homeschools their children, and they did a field trip. They wanted to see the police, so they came down. A lot of people come into the Madison Coffee shop there, and they loved seeing us. They came over to the table. Just it was a meet and greet, get to know them. It was a really good turnout, very successful. We plan on doing it again.
I was gonna ask,
Yeah.
you gonna do it again?
Yes.
Good.
And then we've had other events you might have seen, like on our Facebook page, where we had students from Daniel Hand come and they had a tour of the building. We have a group of students that are coming in towards the end of February from Polson that will be doing the same thing. And then we also have March 3rd and March 4th coming up. Officers are gonna be reading at the elementary schools at Jeffrey M. Ryerson, so.
Oh, nice.
Not as major as Memorial Day parades, but it's other events.
It's the day-to-day.
Yeah.
Okay, regional shared services.
Okay, we have the, excuse me, where is it? We had the accident reconstruction team come out to the fatal accident on Horse Pond Road. That encompasses the shoreline towns that are part of that compact. We also have the Wallingford Police Department is going to be a new addition to our SWAT team. So that's the latest update on regional shared services.
So will you get, or have you gotten the report in terms of that fatality? Will you get
Yes.
a formal, here's what we think happened?
Yeah, so, you
So Sergeant Phillips is investigating the case. It happened in our town, so we'll be the primary investigator on that. And then we have the officers that come from the other town that assist Sergeant Phillips in the cases. But, we all have someone that's, measuring the scene, and another person's photographing the scene. And Sergeant Phillips will take it, we'll do a little bit more investigating, more involved, interviewing people, witnesses, that type of thing, and they kind of all put it together, you know what I mean? So that's, so we will get a report at the end.
The most important aspect of the regional traffic team is they have a device called the Faro scanner. It goes on a tripod like the camera. It's approximately $80,000. So all the departments, pool their money together, and it could create a 360 3D recreation of the actual scene. So it takes the pictures, and that's like the most valuable tool because it captures millions of data points of measurements and everything. So that's just for evidence wise. It could pretty much recreate the scene if we ever had to go to court or anything for documentation purposes. So that's the biggest tool of that, where the officers come from the scene, we document the scene properly and everything, so, yeah.
just try not to dive into the operational aspect of it, but, you know, the fatalities are thankfully extraordinarily rare. So in this instance, what is the process to notify the family? Do we have a formal, does that decision or the identification or authorization get kicked up to someone at your level or the chief's level to say, okay, here's who is going to deliver that tragic message? How is that handled?
Well, it could range from the detectives will go to the house. It can range from, depending upon where the person lives, you might have to call, they could be from out of state, you might have to call another agency to what we call to make a notification. It is now law now, you have to notify next of kin if someone passes. So we make that notification, whether it's us directly or whether we reach out to another agency that might be far away. We have to send a teletype to them to officially ask for that request to make that notification, but that's how it goes.
Yep. And then the investigating officer then, like, the initial notification gets made, but then the investigating officer reaches out to those family, and the next day they usually always either will go out to there or they'll come to the police department. And that's when the in-depth interviews and everything take place, so.
Well, it's a tough situation. Okay, correspondence. We do have one letter here relating to, I guess it's relating to traffic from Gold Rock. Is this, I know this intersection was raised, the Gold Rock and Middle Beach was, is this still under review? Do you know?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, this just reinforces that, so we did. Okay, traffic we covered, new business. Just
to go back, if I may, for Gull Rock for 1 minute, is there a goal time-wise for what may come up with a recommendation?
I think you might have to go with the chief on that. I think he's been dealing with that more closely
Okay.
as far as the timeline.
okay. Traffic calming requests?
So traffic calming requests, so, as we stated, there is that form that's on the town website that's come from 2010. So this is we created a first draft here, so this is a brochure that we're gonna create to have in the police department and that, so here, everyone can have a copy. So it kinda just, goes over the procedures. This is a rough draft. If there's anything that you would like added, removed, or anything, we'd love your input. But this is just, a little pamphlet that we're gonna post on the police department website, probably the town website as well, and also have these in the department lobby that it's readily available for the public to get, where it does have a lot of information about the process and everything. It's not a quick Reader's Digest, but the chief, we're also in the process of recreating the actual request form where it has where the community could, write up their traffic complaint in regards to that, have the signatures, and then go from there. But I know the chief mentioned that, this is gonna be a process where we wanna get the town engineer and everyone involved with the whole process as well.
So that's why you have on the back, it says, make sure the town engineer signed off,
Yep,
police chief, and
Yep.
public works.
yep,
And then public works is meant to do the install? Is
Yes.
that one-
Yep.
So they'll be the final, and then
Yep.
off they go to do it.
yep.
Can we?
So it seems like it's very similar from what we have now.
Yes,
You're
yep.
going from 60% to 50% of
Yes.
the neighbors have to agree to it.
Yep.
Which would be Bruce's, what he was bringing up. He didn't feel that there was 50%
Yep.
that were notified. So that would kind of tick that box for him.
Yep.
But other than that, there's not a lot of changes
No, it's
between
pretty
the
much the
current one
same
and
as
this
that,
one,
yep,
yeah?
yep,
So it's meant to start with the police department and then go over, get checked off, and then
Yep.
it ends with public works?
Yep.
Have we published this yet?
No, this is a rough draft. This is,
Okay, could we just call this a draft until
of course,
you
yeah.
get the
Yep.
input in? And I think the other thing that was gonna be helpful is to have the form
Yep.
as obviously as part of this, but
Absolutely.
this is a good step
Yep.
in terms of, so that somebody doesn't have to say, okay, sit down, let me go through the whole thing with
Yeah.
you. I mean, it's
Yep.
much easier to say, let me give you this, read it over, if you have any questions,
Yep.
here, and you might include, you know, the number either on the form, if
Yep.
you have any questions about it, but this is I think a helpful step in terms of, you know, somebody saying, wait a minute, I have the chief's number, let me
Yeah.
start there.
Yeah.
So,
Does this incorporate the flow chart that resident was speaking of?
It does. So it's just it's more wordy.
Yeah.
That flow chart, we were thinking about adding it to it, but
Yeah.
we're obviously open for your comments, whatever you want to add it. It's just kind of did this rough draft, you know,
Yeah.
first draft, and
Sure.
you know, create a perfect document so it's very straightforward for everyone. So
what, Captain, what would be the easiest way for the commissioners to give you comments? Forward them to Holly,
Yeah.
and she can consolidate
Yeah.
them and get them to you?
absolutely.
But if you could, let me ask you, if you do it in the next week or so, so that maybe in March, you could come back and say, okay, this is the final, speak now, otherwise, we're printing up
Yep.
25,000, whatever. Like it.
It's the first time I had to do this in Word, so I'm trying to get the picture there. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's
So-
tricky.
It's-
You did a good
it-
job.
It's very, you need an MIT degree to get that to print
Yeah.
right, so I know there's that flow chart. I tried getting it and I was like, we gotta work on that, so.
I feel
Yeah.
like it's almost all done already, really, you're not really changing a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I would say
exactly.
if we all go and look at what's already there, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
just tweak that.
I just meant
and then-
like you included all those like data points that are in the flow chart,
Yeah,
that's all,
yeah.
it's in a narrative form, I get
Yeah,
it.
yep,
As it is a draft, we'll certainly make suggestions. The one that comes to mind immediately is it's the involvement of the town engineers.
Yeah.
But there's no timelines involved for their answers.
okay,
From my own experience in the past, that has been one of the delays in the procedure.
yep,
Is we come to some conclusion, some recommendations, it goes across the street and it dies.
But that's a good point. And the other thing, you know, take a deep breath, but, you know, maybe you say to John Anako, John, here's a draft, the commissioners are looking at it, why don't you give me your input? I think prior to going to him, it would be helpful to incorporate Tom's
Yep.
suggestion to say, you see, you have, whatever it might be, 30 days, you know, to respond, that this is on a, you know, it is on a clock.
mhm,
You know, once you submit the form, it is logged and the clock starts, so. But, you know, it just involved, sorry. Okay, guess, Ken, did you cover the liaison with the state agencies?
I have nothing for you,
Okay.
tonight, but I do have this, before you conclude, I have, the two recruits, Alex Raccio and Chris Russo, started the Milford Police Academy on January 17th. And we have our two recruits, Connor Sarasi and Joe DeLucia, are graduating from New Haven's Police Academy on March 13th at Wilbur-Cross High School at 5 p.m. in case you wanted to attend. I think there's a commission meeting that night, so,
Right.
you know.
One of the things we're gonna talk about, we're gonna do a little, we are gonna go at a very brief executive session, just to complete one aspect of the chief's performance review, but we're gonna talk about potentially moving our March meeting from Thursday to Wednesday, so that, you know, that our senior management could attend the graduation ceremony. I mean, that's, as you would imagine, that's a big deal. and to have the quote, the brass there, unquote, is probably isn't much more important than having them at a commission meeting, with all due respect.
Oh, for shame.
For shame. Anyway, but, so assume that unless we really have a conflict that develops, there will be, moving our March meeting to Wednesday, and, you'll be attending the graduation. Okay? Good. Okay, commissioner comments?
No, sir.
No? Ian?
I just wanted to publicly acknowledge that the police department is being recognized with an award by the Madison Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
So congratulations to them. Executive award, I think it's called?
Executive director.
The Executive Director Award. Yes.
Okay. Forgive me.
So to that, I would love to see if anyone wants to go, we can get a table or two. I think it would be great to represent and to be there to cheer you guys on.
I think I
so-
can go.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'd love to, yeah.
When is it, do we know?
March sixth.
Sixth,
March
yeah.
Okay.
So if we
And
wanted
where
to,
is it?
Where?
I think it's at the beach
Wood-
hotel.
Woodlands.
Oh, it's at
So
Woodlands.
Woodlands.
Oh, okay, all the way to Woodlands.
We could carpool.
We could carpool, we could do that. Oh, yeah, I think it'd be great, so congratulations on that.
Good, good, well, if, tell you what, if you could let, again, Holly know, if you can attend, and then we can see how many, in terms of.
And see how many wanna come
So
from the
I've
department too.
I've already purchased tickets for both captains and the chief.
Okay.
Okay.
See if anybody else wants to go, and we
Okay.
can talk about.
Yes.
So March sixth is a Thursday. You said March sixth?
March
is
sixth.
Thursday,
Yes.
okay.
It's at 5 p.m.
Okay,
Think it'll be long? They're honoring a bunch of other people too, not
They
just you
are.
guys, so it might be,
That's not
Yeah.
important.
They're long.
guys.
so it might be.
Okay. Mike,
I'm all set, thank you.
Tonight is the night of signs. I got a request from Tim Cosgrove, who you might know, he's a local business owner here in town, asking a question that I couldn't answer, so I said I would bring it up tonight. Downtown Madison parking, especially on Route 1, is where a lot of visitors will park, because they don't know, like the rest of us, to go and park in the back or where the little spots are. So he's asking about the one spot right in front of Walker Loden, that really prime spot at the end that says reserved for police parking that police never park in. So A, why do we have that? Do we need it? B, is it up for discussion? Could we add it back to the role of parking for downtown? So I said I would bring it up, so I'm asking the question if you have any ideas.
Well, I don't agree with no one ever parks there on a number of occasions.
You've seen
I've
police
plenty of
officers
police
park
cars
there?
in
Okay.
that spot, and actually, if no one ever parked there, but we needed a spot downtown for whatever reason, we need one, in my opinion, designated just for the police department.
Okay,
And if he's concerned about visitors, give him a map to show him where Stop and Shop is.
no, and we all know that, but people that are visiting for the weekend or that kind of thing.
So I know, if I can just speak, when I was a patrol officer, I would park there, but then but it wouldn't be for a quad, get out and I would walk, just,
Right.
it would be like a park and walk, if you will.
Gotcha.
So it's nice to have just a designated parking space regardless of what the nature of the incident is. So I'd like to keep it if we could,
Yeah,
but, yeah,
I think the answer is we
yeah,
could.
we could.
Look, and
so
there
then
may
I
be
guess
other-
my follow-up would be, does it have to be that prime spot right downtown across from the post office and the library? I mean, that is a great spot for people to use, so then I would argue, could find you another spot maybe, but.
Along the same lines, and you and I can go back and forth till it's dawn, that's one of the more visible spots.
Right.
So if a police car is there, people coming left, right, whatever, across, they see potentially see the cop car there.
So you like that
That's
aspect?
also a good spot to watch out for people who continue to make illegal U-turns in front of the post office.
Okay,
I questioned someone from New York about that recently, and he said he didn't see the sign. So I suggested that perhaps he might want to reconsider his answer. And he said, why is that? And I said, well, if you haven't seen the sign and you're out of town, that means you potentially represent a threat to Madison residents because you might hit them. I said, you might want to say you ignored the sign and we don't have to call anybody involved in it. So he took a minute and he said, I ignored the sign, I'm sorry.
all right.
They're very
Thank you for letting me ask that question on his behalf.
Okay, I have no comments. I think this is a good start in obviously getting to an issue that is not the latest one, but, you know, this is the second meeting where we're dealing with this traffic issue. So anyway, thank you very much. So, is there a motion to adjourn so we can have a brief executive session meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.